Hello everyone! This is Saurian Target welcoming you back to another episode of Hunting Highlights, where this week we're back playing some more Carnivores Legacy. This time returning to the haunted forests of the ancient temple to start the trophy hunts. That's right, Carnivores Legacy is finally on the latest MEE build with manual reloads and manually claimable trophies, which will allow us to take down anything in our way and only claim what we want to bring back as a trophy. So without further ado, let's begin. So today we are starting off in a rocky clearing with a panicked Pachycephalosaurus off to our east. And after making sure we are not about to be ambushed, I zone in on the thick-headed lizard as my first target of the hunt. It's not presenting me with a clear shot while it's frantically trying to scale the mountain, so I crouch down low behind this little rise and wait for it to calm down. There's no sign of it up at the top, so I try a call. The Pachycephalosaur answers, revealing its location, so now the stalk begins. Today, we're on a primarily dangerous herbivore hunt. My selected licenses are Pachycephalosaurus, of course, as well as Triceratops and Iguanodon. Three very hardy dinosaurs that I personally tend to associate with the more mountainous, temperate forests of the dinosaur planet. But we are not just after those three today. Thanks to the MEE's outstanding new features, Carnivores Legacy has a ton of extra huntable dinosaurs roaming these islands. I've chosen the ancient temple for today's introductory trophy hunt, as I think it holds a nice variety of endemic huntable dinosaurs. But before I get too excited about the possibilities, we're just gonna focus on one dinosaur at a time and just see where the hunt takes us. Unfortunately, I'm having quite a bit of trouble scaling up this mountain ridge that I think will give me a good view of where my Pachycephalosaurus is hiding. Finally, I find a foothold that leverages me onto the top, and start scanning the tree line for the Pachycephalosaurus. My binoculars pick up its biosignal out in the woods, so now it's time to stalk back down the rock face and pursue. And now that the mod is on the latest MEE build, I'm excited to finally start trophy hunting to fill up my trophy room. Another dinosaur call keeps me honed in on its direction, and potentially gets it turned towards me. But I need to be careful. These woods are thick, and I can't see very far in front of me at all. And a Pachycephalosaurus is not a dinosaur you want to suddenly surprise in a confined space. I can finally see through to the other side of the woods just ahead, and hopefully my Pachycephalosaurus isn't too far out in that clearing. I spot movement among the rocks, and ready my rifle for when the dinosaur reveals itself. No shot yet, so I stalk just a little bit closer. This Pachy is remaining perfectly hidden behind all of these tall rocks, and now I'm starting to expose myself out of the shelter of the thicket. As I cross the open terrain, I try to keep the wind pointed at me as best I can, nice and snug with this mountain blocking my right side. Finally, Pachycephalosaurus down, and we can now go see the result of our lengthy stalk. So just going off of original Carnivores 1 statistics, 1.49 tons is a really good-sized Pachycephalosaurus. In the original game, these dinosaurs max out at around 1.73 tons. And I think it's pretty poetic to claim a Pachycephalosaurus, my personal favorite of the original Carnivores 1 dinosaurs, as our first trophy here in Carnivores Legacy. So with our guns reloaded, and our stalk having taken us nearly to the namesake temple itself, I start heading to the reserve's northeastern corner so I can then turn and head west with a maximized wind advantage. Just past the temple grounds, I spot a theropod-shaped silhouette out in the distance. It's a Tyrannosaurus, but not an adult, a juvenile, likely still clinging to the shelter of the ancient temple's dense woodlands as it hones its hunting skills. No quick eye shot takedown today, and unfortunately, we do have to end this little guy's hunting career early. However, since we can't claim immature dinosaurs, he might end up feeding some other Juvie Rexes out here, which just might end up teaching them that scavenging meals is a good way to not get yourself killed. Atop a small rocky outcrop, I spot a lone iguanodon just at the edge of my view range. I'm not sure how big this species of FMM iguanodon gets, but just under 6 tons seems like a decent starting point to me, so I'm gonna try and bag this guy if he gives me a good shot. He's not being super cooperative, but a call might bring him over that rise and out of those trees. Central East's iguanodon's mortal zones can be a bit tricky. I admit, I do struggle with them fairly often. Finally, we get a good shot at his spine, and send the local phytosaur scurrying away. Of the 2 iguanodon species on the dinosaur planet, I'm honestly not sure which one is bigger. I know the Central West species is probably taller, with its imposing, tail-dragging, more vertical build, but this Central East one seems to have more mass and muscle on its side. And 6 tons for a dinosaur that isn't covered in horns, frills, or armor is nothing to scoff at. So I'll gladly take this guy back as at least a starting point for us. Alright, iguanodon claimed, and we've now hit the western edge of the reserve. So once I make it to the actual coast, my plan is to angle back down to the southeast, hopefully avoiding the huge swamp in the middle of the island, and then start back on a northwestern trek with some better wind. And hopefully not get eaten by a phytosaur. As I work my way through the lowlands, I spot a tiny Triceratops making a break for the tree line. Not even 2.5 tons, this one is tiny. And despite the animal's poor senses, the wind was blowing my scent directly at it. So I start angling myself away while still staying on its trail to hopefully give me a better advantage if I find it again. Having worked my way down into the southern border of the swamp, the wind direction has dramatically improved. So now, I can begin to stalk this little Triceratops without worrying about it catching my scent again. I don't love the hair-raising rumble of the phytosaurs directly behind me, but the trike has finally calmed down and begun to graze. However, it's not giving me a great shot angle, so I'm gonna try to get closer and see if it will change its direction. I didn't necessarily want to use a call, since now its massive head is blocking all of its vital areas, and this trike is so small it's actually concealed itself very well among those ferns. If I can just find a shot window. Perfect. And with no predators attracted by the noise, we can go check out our tiny trike. So I have no intention of claiming this little guy as a trophy. Maybe if I wanted to collect largest and smallest trophies, but regardless, it is exciting to bring down one of FMM's most iconic horned dinosaurs. Now, I can continue my trek eastward. While scaling a mountain for a better vantage point, I accidentally spook another iguanodon. It's a smaller individual than our first one earlier in the hunt, and should make for decent practice while I work on my iguanodon mortal zone accuracy. Unfortunately, I cannot get back up on this hill, but luckily the iguanodon hasn't noticed me yet. It is staying perfectly protected behind those trees, so I decide to sneak over to the other hill to my north and see if that presents a better vantage point. My wind is good, so as long as I stay low, quiet, and crouched, the herbivore shouldn't notice me. Suddenly, it appears much closer than I expected over the hill, and I take my time to ensure it doesn't notice me and flee. My cover may have been blown, but an on-the-move vertebrae shot actually managed to drop the iguanodon in its tracks. And even though I don't plan to claim this smaller specimen, it does feel good to keep improving my accuracy on moving targets. And now that we are officially in the reserve's center swamp, I'm going to begin my trek back up to the northwest with some favorable wind. Atop a decent rise just outside the swamp, I spot another Pachycephalosaurus, roughly half the size of my first one. From my vantage point up here, I'm not seeing anything else that I should prioritize over the small Pachy, so I'm hoping this call lures it out of its hiding place. Finally, the Pachy emerges through a clearing in the trees to graze on a far hillside. One neck shot drops the smaller dinosaur, and again, I don't plan to claim this one, but I'm thankful for all the practice I'm getting in today's hunt. On the exact same hill where the smaller Pachy was grazing, I spot a decent-sized Parasaurolophus out in the distance. Unfortunately, the hadrosaur quickly meanders behind some cover, but another small pachycephalosaur wanders into my view. Another pachycephalosaur down, and this one turns out to be just 0.05 tons bigger than the one currently lying at the base of the hill. I'm not going to claim this one either, but the fleeing para should give me something to chase as I keep working my way to the northwest. After crossing through some ruins in the northwestern corner, I've long lost the Parasaurolophus, but I spot a Styracosaurus just across a nearby stone quarry. Using Triceratops as a standard, 4.6 tons seems good for a generally smaller FMM ceratopsian. So with the coast clear, I keep heading west across the hill country after this horned dinosaur. As I quickly check my surroundings, I spot the silhouette of another large herbivore fleeing off in the distance. So I head down into the quarry to claim my Styracosaurus as quickly as I can. I don't want to lose whatever that other beast may be. Styracosaurus claimed, and some sudden huffing over this hill stops me dead in my tracks. The culprit turns out to be an Agathomus, and again, going off Triceratops standards, a decent sized one at that. I wasn't exactly sure where to aim on this wondrous beast. This is my first Agathomus encounter, but like its Styracosaur relative, a neck shot seems to do just fine. Agathomus is one of my favorite FMM ceratopsians, so I'll happily add this one to my trophy room. Now, the silhouette of that large fleeing herbivore earlier looked like an Agathomus, but it also looked like it was fleeing more southwest, already farther down the beach than where this one was grazing. So just to make sure I'm not missing out on a second Agathomus, I head southward down the beach a ways to leave no stone unturned. I've worked my way down a good stretch of coastline with nothing notable in sight. So with several new trophies under our belt, let's head on back to check them out. Alright, we are finally here in our Central East trophy room and ready to check out our first legacy trophies. The first of which is this really good sized Pachycephalosaurus. I'm very happy to have such a sizable representative of my favorite Carnivores 1 dinosaur as my first legacy trophy. So now we'll head down the main roster walkway and check out our Iguanodon, who already from a distance does look very impressive. I wasn't sure how big 6 tons was for this species, but here in the display, I think it looks great. And just across from our Iguanodon is our Agathomus, who, in contrast to the Iguanodon, actually looks kinda small in there by itself. I know trikes can exceed 6 tons, so maybe I do need to work on improving this trophy, but for now, I'm just really glad to have one of these in here. They are spectacular looking dinosaurs. And last but certainly not least for today is our first extra huntable dinosaur of our Legacy Trophy Tour, the Styracosaurus, who at almost 5 tons, I do think is a pretty good size for one of these more medium-sized horned dinosaurs. Alright, that's gonna do it for this week's episode, guys. I am so excited to finally start filling up our Legacy Trophy room, and I hope you guys are too. So be sure to let me know down in the comments section below, what's your personal best for each of the dinosaurs we claim today? Have you encountered any juvenile T-Rex in your legacy hunts yet? And has my accuracy in today's episode made up for the disastrous ornate Stegosaurus hunt in Carnivores Triplex a couple of weeks ago? Thanks again, guys. You are all truly the best, and I will see you guys next time.